Great, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 10th EIP-7928 Breakout call. Today is January 14th. And yeah, let's directly get started. We have quite some items on today's agenda. And I would say we directly get into the first one, which includes Devnet 1 updates. Would be great if Stefan is on the call. I see he is. Maybe Stefan, could you give us maybe some quick update on Devnet 1?
Yeah, sure. So happy New Year also, everyone. In this first breakout call, Devnet 1 is going pretty strong currently. There were a few hiccups, a few syncing problems, but we managed to figure pretty much most issues out. Red currently, I think they're still on holiday. They're still working on figuring out their syncing issue. But otherwise, Nethermind is pretty stable. Let me change my audio. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, it's better. It was okay, but now it's better.
Okay, great. So Nethermind has managed to fix most of the inconsistencies and is doing pretty well now. We're running the EVM fuzzer and we're running Uniswap transactions consistently. And it seems there are no errors that we can find with these two strategies anymore. And most clients seem to have solved the issue that they were facing over the holidays. So that's great. Now I think we're ready for talking about Devnet 2. And I think we can leave Devnet 1 behind once Reth managed to sync up again.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the update. Is there anything from client teams that someone would like to add regarding Devnet 1? Or maybe Rahul or Felipe, you guys have great insights into testing. Anything that you guys would like to mention regarding Devnet 1?
I think only that, a couple of the issues that arose from DevNet 1 were used to create tests, but these were not, there was no release that targeted DevNet 1 with these tests, but these test cases are now included in the next test release.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great. Yeah, the second agenda point would already be Devnet 2. I'm not sure if everyone has seen it. On Tuesdays, Mondays, I forgot, testing call, 4 additional EIPs were slated for Devnet 2 for the BAL Devnet 2. I think it's the slot num upcode, it's ETH transfers emitting a lock, and 2 more EIPs, I forgot now. What do you think? Is this something we should already put on Devnet 2, or do clients feel it would be smarter to not yet add any EIPs to Devnet 2? Of course, considering that at some point we need to add some more EIPs just to make sure we stay in time.
The business side, I think it's too early because we wanted to use Devnet 2 to verify if the batch reading is useful or not. We will also add separation between block access list and body, etc. So, in my opinion, I would prefer to have the Devnet 2 only focusing on block access list, and maybe the next one will be able to integrate more EIPs. But my feeling is maybe it's too soon to add additional EIPs that are not related to block access list in Devnet 2. But
yeah, I lean towards agreeing with that. From the Geth side, there's a possibility we could make the deadline or the intended start date, but we still haven't, even to my knowledge, nobody has started implementing the EIP for the ETH transfers on log, and I'm personally not very familiar with that, not sure what the complexity is, so it's hard for me to give a firm thumbs up to the that date.
Yeah, I can definitely see that perspective too. Maybe a question to Stefan, like how set in stone is the date of the 21st of January versus could we just delay Devnet 2 or what would that mean for you guys?
Nothing necessarily is set in stone. We're happy to adjust that we can move block level accesses further as quickly as possible, depending on how the clients are progressing. We can also have a Devnet 3 as well. So I think we just need to agree on exactly how we want and what we want to have in the Devnets such that we can move fast.
Right. Yeah. As Karim said, we wanted Devnet 2 to definitely include like batch reading, at least for a few clients, such that we are able to benchmark the state locations and finally decide if we want to keep the state locations / the reads in the block level access list or not. How far are clients with that? Is there a client team that has already implemented batch reading using the state locations from the BAL?
On Bezu, we have a first implementation. I wanted to do some tests next week to be sure it's working correctly. But yeah, on Bezu, we have a first PR, and maybe we'll be able to merge it next week or at the end of the next week or something like that.
Okay, yeah, this is great. Is there another client team that has already looked into batch reading? Okay, I interpret that as a no. How far are clients in general with the batch reading? Is this something that clients are working on right now? Just to give you some context, for some of the repricing work or some of the repricing EIPs that have been CFI'd for Amsterdam, they're still waiting for benchmarks. And before we don't figure out like how much we actually get from block level accesses, it's difficult for them to do the benchmarking, which means the BALs is basically blocking some of the repricing work. So this is like why it's maybe pressuring that we get the batch IO implemented in order for us to figure out how the final BAL design will look like. Is there a client team that is planning to start implementing that soon, apart from Bezu?
I so I can just give a very brief summary of what this roadmap looks like for Geth. Right now we're just trying to get the existing most of the BAL changes, with the exception of the performance related changes, merged into the master branch. And yeah, I mean, I intend to look into it. I'm hoping we can get this merging process done in the next week or so. But yeah, I haven't made any headway on that.
Okay, thank you. Also, just to relay the message from Mark from Nethermind is also saying Nethermind hasn't looked into it yet. They were more focused on the parallel execution. Yeah, and Karim is saying seems like 21 for Devnet will be too soon. That's my feeling, and that's my feeling too. Especially if we want to get the benchmarks for Devnet 2, we might want to at least wait until at least one client team has implemented the batch IO, such that we can get the benchmarks.
Also for Devnet 2, we are trying to do the separation between block access list and body, and we wanted to have more clarification regarding how the test will work. More exactly, if we remove block access list from the block, how we'll do the import in the test, in the Hive test.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the RLP tests, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that's worth discussing with the client teams if we have a separate file with the BAL, just as we do with the blocks. Yeah, we'll have to discuss and figure something out that works for everyone. Because yeah, from Amsterdam on, this is going to change the entirety of the RLP tests.
Yeah, because if we want to have maybe that for the next DevNet, we need to find a way to test that.
Yeah, that engine API still has like consume engine is still testable. Is this correct?
Mm.
Is the issue only with the RLP tests, or did we have changes? Yeah. So we wanted to get the test release out so at least consume engine can be tested. If we have a separate file that has the BAL as an RLP, is this a good way to do it? How do client teams feel about this?
I don't know if we want to talk about that now, but just wanted to raise that because today Miroslav he did the PR and he asked this question, so I wanted to be sure we will think about that.
Yeah, we can definitely figure this out async as well, but it'll be important to get this answered for sure.
Okay.
Great. Just to answer Barnabas' question here in the chat. So what is the state locations are useful for two things. First of all, we want to find out if the batch reading is useful for two things. We want to find out if the state locations are worth it, because the state locations are like 50% of the BAL size, and removing them would of course improve BAL propagation and stuff. So we have to have some certainty that knowing all the state locations that are not even changed is actually worth it to have in the BAL. So this is the main thing we try to achieve here. And second, some of the repricing work is blocked in a sense that it's not even clear which repricings EIP are needed, because of course, if block level access lists help you a lot with fetching data from the state, then we might not need aggressive state repricings as they are proposed in some of the state repricing EIPs that are up for discussion. So yeah, I was talking with Maria, who is very involved in that effort, and she was saying that this is the case for them, that they can't really get, it's not only about final numbers, but basically get any number to even know is a certain repricing EIP very much needed, or can it be delayed, for example? Just as some context. Regarding the replayable BAL benchmark question that I see here from Lukas, let me check if Jochen is actually on the call, because Jochen has some great insights into that topic. Jochen, are you on the call and could give us some details on BAL benchmarking?
Yes. So what is the Okay, the question is like, how do we actually want to test this?
Exactly, yeah.
Do we have some good replayable ball benchmarks? That's the question, right?
Yes, exactly. Like how
Yeah.
would we test the parallelization and that everything is working?
Yes, yes. So what we do here is, what we want to do is, if you want to parallelize transactions now, what clients do is optimistically execute transactions in parallel. So what we want to do for the benchmarking effort here is we want to create tests which cannot be parallelized without the block level access list. So how do you do that? Well, a very simple example would be, in the first transaction, you would keep hashing something, and then you would store the hash result in a storage slot. Then in the second transaction, you would read the hash from the storage slot, and you would keep hashing it again, and you would store it again in the storage slot. So what is the end result of this storage slot? Well, it's basically being a slot which has been hashed like over multiple transactions. So if you would execute this optimistically without block level access lists, then every transaction would point to the same, or would end up with the same storage slot. So let's say we would store it at key 0, then every transaction would end up with the same hash. But obviously, in this case, we have to keep hashing this item. So without the block level access list, we cannot do this in parallel. Because if we have the block level access list, then we can actually read the storage slot from the block level access list, and we can start hashing from there, and therefore we can execute these things in parallel. And we can also do this for like anything which has to do with storage. So we'll break up these tests in tests which cannot be executed in parallel without the block level access list, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but if I can say something, that doesn't really tell us much about the red addresses, red slots, right? Should we include it or not? Because this is a bit different problem. Also, if we like run those kind of benchmarks on a relatively empty state, that's also pretty easy, right? Because empty state is fast to read, or almost empty state is fast to read, while if the state is big, it's slower to read. So yeah, I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah, okay. So for this example, I took like a hash chain. Can someone inform me like about these slots? Because I think, Tony, this is about adding the slot keys which are being read to the block level access list, right?
Exactly, yeah. And the addresses that are accessed but not changed.
Right. And the question is, do we want to add these slots because it adds like a lot of data, or do we not want this? And we want to test in the benchmarks if this is, well, what the benefits of it will be, right?
Exactly, yeah. Right now they are part of the EIP and they're part of the specs. And so far clients have signaled that it might be worth to have those. Oh, but of course I think in Buenos Aires we said we want to actually wait for final numbers before we lock that in.
Yes. Okay. So I'm just thinking out loud then. So to test this, we would basically. Okay. Yeah. First, Lucas, because you also mentioned like, are we going to benchmark this on empty state? No, we will not do that, because if you would benchmark it on empty state, you are absolutely right. You can basically cache the entire Merkel tree into your memory, and then it's obviously like very fast. So if we benchmark this, we will benchmark this on a mainnet fork or maybe a bloatnet. So that's like 2 times the size of a mainnet to actually simulate, well, big sized networks, and also take care of like the lookup time of these of this data. And then for the benchmarking itself, for what we would want to see is like the impact of reading these storage slots. So in that case, I think we can come up with like a variant also of like a hash chain, where we also have to read multiple storage slots first and then also write to them. You're right, it's not as simple as like writing a hash chain, but yeah, we can do that. We can do it. I will think about this, but we maybe already have some kind of these tests.
Generally, yes, but what I want to say is that it's hard to reliably benchmark those kind of things because you basically have to create some snapshots for each client to be able to replay the same blocks over and over, right, etc. And create those blocks. So it's not trivial. That's what I want to say.
Yes, I completely agree. It's also like hard to measure this, but as part of the gas benchmarking effort, the Netamind team is like working on this gas benchmark tool, and what is doing what people are doing there is that we try to keep like the cache out. We can if we would benchmark these things, we would also read, we would like keep starting and stopping these clients to actually get like these reliable results.
Yeah, I know we have this kind of things, but yeah, I wanted to actually ping that out that you should maybe talk with Camille, etc. But okay, we already covered.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Camille is indeed working on this. Yeah, so that would indeed be yeah, how to measure these kind of things. Yeah. And then of course we need like these benchmarks to specifically test like what's like the benefit of these state reads and state writes. I will think about this. It should be not super hard, but also not super easy. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, this is great. And especially, yeah, I think it's a good idea to have it on a shadow fork of mainnet and then also test it on bloatnet just to make sure that things don't look very different as soon as the state increases. I see Barnabas has his hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so you guys talked a bunch about repricing and how it will affect future repricing EIPs and unique benchmarking. But in terms of the scope of Devnet 2, none of this matters. We're introducing 4 EIPs. None of them require benchmarking, basically. I feel like the BAL Devnet should work on implementation featureness and making sure all the EIPs that only touch the ELs are done and implemented by every single EL team. And then once it's coming to the actual repricing values, that should be a parallel discussion that's not really related to DevNet progression. So like we shouldn't be blocking DevNet 2 just because we don't have the exact numbers for repricing EIP, especially because there's no repricing EIP proposed for DevNet 2. Have the spec sheet that Stefan made for the Devnet 2 scope. Yeah, as you can see, it's basically new instructions. The each transfer emit a log, a new opcode, and exclude refunds from log F. But yeah, none of these are benchmark related questions. So that's why I suggested that we could probably launch Devnet 2 next week, because these are all fairly small implementation EIPs.
Yeah, this is true. Like all those 4 EIPs won't affect block level access lists, so nothing new for the block level access list specs happening there. It's more like, for example, tomorrow we will again DFI a few EIPs in the all-cut-offs call, and it's hard to make that decision without knowing how much we actually need to change the state pricing, for example. So it's not really about those smaller EIPs. It's more like, yeah, giving us earlier information such that we can take a good decision on what EIP to CFI and which one not. Because currently it's not super clear how much block level access list will help with state-related stuff. And if it helps a lot, the repricing might not be needed or might be less aggressive. If it's not that impactful for state, then we need a potentially more aggressive repricing. So it's more about, about the repricing work that is still undecided.
But this is, again, a totally different parallel discussion. What the value of the repricing should be can be decided by the benchmarking guys. But in terms of Devnet progression, we want to have all the EIPs that are CFI'd implemented, because that is the whole point of having CFI'd. So we implement the EIP that was proposed for the change, and then we can evaluate if the given values that were CFI'd are correct or not in a much later DevNet. But for now, I would just propose that we implement what has been proposed and accepted as a CFI candidate, and then if those values deemed to be incorrect, then we can adjust them and we can roll it out for the next following DevNet, especially for the where it's just a single changing a single value in a repricing EIP. It's fairly easy.
Yeah, fair enough. I very much agree with you. So if I don't think the repricing should block us at all when it comes to launching BAL devnets, I would say it's definitely worth it to wait. If it's only a few more days to wait until at least one client has implemented the parallel batch IO, because this will already give us like very good numbers for not only for the repricing work but also for block level access lists itself, deciding if we keep the state locations or not. But apart from that, I totally agree. Like the repricing work is not blocking us here.
But there's also the parallel IO stuff is not a consensus change, so it can be just rolled out. Let's say we launch DevNet 2 on Wednesday, it could be rolled out on Thursday if one client is ready there. We don't
Yeah,
need
I'm fine with
yeah.
that too. Yeah, I was
It's not
just
a
thinking that we okay. This is good to know. So we can launch Devnet 2 on the 21st, and if clients finish batch IO implementation after that, we could still integrate it, right?
Yeah, we just need to make sure the ball is rolling forward and not getting blocked on stuff that is not an actual blocker.
Perfect. Yeah, then the question is, of course, like, will clients be able to implement those 4 EIPs until the 21st, which Karim and Jared were, pessimistic about. We can, of course, delay the DevNet to get those 4 EIPs ready. I guess that's what we are about to do, or what do you think, Karim or Jared? What do you think about this?
I think I would prefer to delay a bit, honestly. We still have some stuff to finish. For example, separation of the block access list and body is not completely merged. And RPC method, we just started to work on it today. I don't know, maybe it will be ready for 21, but for me it seems to be a really small period to finish everything correctly, but I don't know what
Yeah,
the other clients think, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would prefer to delay it.
Sorry,
Yeah,
what
mainly.
was the last thing? You're for delaying it or for not delaying it, and then we roll out any changes later into the DevNet? I guess you said delaying it, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I can totally see that. I would say we can coordinate on that async, especially also with Stefan, what Stefan thinks about this, and see where we're at on the 21st next week. But yeah, I think it's good for now. We can keep the 21st for now and then see where we are in a week. And if it takes a few more days, we will just delay the launch of Devnet 2.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I'm not the one on the Get side implementing the other EIPs that are being bundled into this, so it's hard for me to give a firm commitment. I do think if Devnet 2 only included the decoupling changes that were made, I think it would be perhaps a reasonable timeline. But yeah, I'm also for I think as it's planned right now, it's very possible that I won't be able to make that deadline.
Perfect. I think everything's clear now. Then let's stick to that. We will see where we are on the 21st, and if it takes a few more days, we will just delay Devnet 2 such that we can have those 4 EIPs implemented on top of the BAL Devnet.
Just not sure how long it will take to have these EIPs. I don't know. Maybe we should ask people that are working on it.
Yeah, I quickly talked with Marius yesterday about those 4 EIPs. So Marius was saying the complexity coming from those EIPs is rather low. I think the ETH transfers is the most complex one, and the other ones are okay-ish. But of course, this is only one data point. Yeah, we will have to see.
Because if it's just dealing too much, maybe it's just better to start without that. And
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, let's see where we are next week. We have more clarity, I would say, and then we can take a decision on that. Great. Yeah, and this already brings us to the next agenda item, which is what changed with block level access lists recently. As already said, the block level access list was moved out of the execution block and is now separate. It's still in the execution payload, so passed from the CL to the EL via the execution payload. So this didn't change, but it's not part of the block body anymore. And this should definitely be something we roll out with Devnet 2 already. Same for what else do we have on the agenda here? Same for the JSON RPC methods. That would also be part of the scope of Devnet 2 already. So to summarize, moving the block level access list out of the block and the JSON RPC method. Those would be the changes compared to Devnet 1. Is there any other change that I forgot now? Don't think so. Perfect. Yeah, looking at the agenda, then there is a. Let me actually post the agenda quickly in the chat such that everyone can have a look. As you can see on the agenda, under specs, updates, and clarification, there was a comment by Light Client that we should further clarify what we mean with access. This has already been a topic last week and 2 weeks ago, or a few weeks ago in the last block level access list call. Like, when do we actually put an account onto the block level access list versus not? And it has to do with doing all the static gas checks up front, and only when we actually need to go to state, we put the block level access list on. We put the account on the block level access list. And since this has never been clearly specified, so clients could do different things here, we saw some issues with testing. I think most of them are resolved, but as you can see in the EIP, there is a new section further clarifying what we mean with access for each different opcode and when we actually put the account into the block level access list. So if you haven't seen that yet, please check that out. I think clients are already doing it correctly by now, because otherwise we wouldn't pass those tests, but just as a heads up. Great. Then let's move on to the next item, which is testing updates. We already talked a bit about testing now, but Felipe, could you give us a quick update, also potentially focusing on Devnet 2 already. Is there anything we should consider for testing?
Yeah, we talked about these consume RLP changes that are going to need to happen. I created a thread in the block level access list channel that we should start discussing that. I think it would be nice to get input from clients on that front. How best to go about that new consume interface for RLP. But as far as the tests update, related to this update for the gas boundaries, there was an issue on the Devnet that was related to this for self-destruct, and we had included all of the gas boundaries for the call opcodes already in the tests, and this latest test release has I believe all the gas boundaries and all sorts of cases for self-destruct as well, because this was related to the issue. So that coverage got increased greatly. And we also turned on all of the old Ethereum tests. They used to live inside the Ethereum tests repo. They now live in the execution specs repo as static tests. And these were all filled for Amsterdam in this last release as well. And so we have greatly increased the test coverage since the last release in this one.
Awesome, thanks for the update. Is there any questions someone has, client teams have? Okay, I just saw a question by Bertnet. Do we need the engine get BALs by hash v1, engine get BALs by range for Devnet 2? This is a good question. What do clients think about this? Do we already want to include that for Devnet 2? I would per default say yes, but happy to hear other opinions.
Can you just shortly explain how those are used by the CL?
Yes, so get BALs by hash v1. Let me quickly think about it. So recently, this is different, but recently I've created a PR regarding dev P2P, because we need dev P2P for the syncing of block level access lists. For example, if your node falls behind and you want to request the block level access lists independently from the block, or if you just want to use it to update your state. Regarding engine get BALs by hash, this was basically doing the same as we do for blocks. So you would basically use it as you use it for blocks today. It would give you the same, and since blocks and block level access lists were decoupled, we would need this function to actually allow you to get the block level access lists in addition to the block.
Okay, maybe I'm misinformed. I thought that the BAL was still part of the execution payload. Okay, I'll take a look at the proposed changes.
Great, yeah. Yeah, I would also have to double check that. Maybe we don't even need them. Definitely something to double check. Someone has an opinion on that? On the engine API methods?
Is the implementation very different from implementing the RPC methods for the engine methods?
It's definitely different, yeah. So the CL is not storing the block level access lists, right? The CL will just like store the block level access list hash, the block level access list root, just as they do with transactions, such that we don't have duplicated data. So where you would need those engine API methods is if a node requests the execution payload from you. So this a CL node would request the execution payload from another CL, and the CL doesn't store the BAL. So the CL would need a way to request the block level access list from the EL. And this is where those functions were needed.
But from an implementation point of view, the ETH get block access list by hash should be pretty similar to the engine get BALs by hash implementation, just a different handler.
Yeah, I can see that. That's true. I don't have an insight into how clients implemented it, but I can definitely see that those are very similar.
So, but like aren't the BALs are still in the execution payload that is
Right,
given
yeah.
to the CL, so they have it through there.
They
And
don't store them though.
isn't
So what the CL does with transactions, transactions are stored on the EL, and the CL will only store the execution payload with the transactions root, right? And the same will happen with the BALs. So because this is like too much data to be duplicated, the CL will only store the block level access list root in the execution payload. And if the CL actually needs the full block level access list, the CL would need to request it from the EL.
okay. But yeah, okay. So it's kind of similar to blobs then? Or yeah, not really, but yeah, I mean from on the implementation side, it seems it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we have the block access lists sitting around, so it's just a matter of um, loading them up and transmitting them. But yeah.
Do we have a CL using that for the moment? If we implement it for Devnet 2, is this API will be used or to just be there?
I don't think so. I don't think we would use it for Devnet 2 already. Maybe, Stefan, do you think we would need it already? I don't think so, personally.
I'm not sure if we would use it yet, because yeah, like the CLs probably won't have that implemented, but I can talk to Lodestar. Maybe they can do something about it.
So
Awesome, yeah. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
guess the source of my confusion here is that okay, so the access list is in the execution payload, but the CL doesn't store it. But under which circumstances would the CL need need to query the block access list again for a payload it had already received and discarded the block access list from?
For syncing. I think the CL, if you want to help other nodes syncing, you would want to give them the full execution payload, including the transactions and including the block level access list.
But isn't that I thought we were that's what is but oh, okay, I see. So that kind of presumes that recomputing it locally is to like these nodes syncing are somewhat close to the tip And recomputing the access list locally would be too slow to sync. Or maybe they're not full nodes. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the CL cannot really recompute them. So the only thing that you could do is if you don't store it on the EL, you could recompute it on the EL and then return it to the CL. This is, I guess, a different topic then. The use case I'm thinking of, if you fall like a few blocks behind and you want to catch up again, then you need someone to feed you the blocks, and they would then include the full execution payload, including the full block level access list.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. We can also continue that discussion async to make sure we are all on the same page here. Perfect. Anything else regarding that topic before we move on to the next agenda item? Perfect. Then let's move on with BALs and RPC providers. So Josh from OP Labs joins the call today. Josh, could you give us a quick intro into what are you trying to achieve there?
Yeah, thank you. So the basic context is that many RPC providers and really anyone who operates a lot of nodes in their infrastructure may not need to, with BALs, may not need to verify the full block if they can outsource that verification to another node in their infrastructure. So the idea is that only a single node would actually need to re-execute the transactions at all, and the rest can just act as dumb replicas, applying BALs as they receive them, as long as they can outsource the verification to this other node. So, haven't thought too far about implementation yet, but the idea is that maybe the EL would just have a mode where it would just apply the BAL instead of doing the full re-execution. And we were curious if any L1 client teams had thought about this, if there's any like hard blockers to this idea that make it infeasible or not useful. Yeah, and if this might be considered as something to be implemented in the future.
Yeah, great question. This is almost like the execution-less state updates, basically not executing, using the BAL to make sure your state is in sync with the chain. I would just forward this to client. Have clients implemented anything around that or thought about it?
So are you talking about using BALs for like sort of like a stateless execution? I mean, I guess I don't fully understand because you need the pre-state to do the execution. The information contained in the BAL alone isn't enough.
So perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but the way I understand the BALs essentially includes enough information to update the pre-state to the post-state. Let me know if that's not correct. But if it does, then I think as long as we can apply the BAL, then re-execution shouldn't be necessary.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, as I understood, Josh, it's not about statelessness. It's more about running a node without executing. Basically, you would outsource execution to another node that you trust. The node will tell you this block is valid, which also means at this point you can trust the BAL. And at this point, you can then just apply the BAL to your pre-state, you get the post-state, and you would run a very cheap RPC provider, right? Because you could run an RPC service that doesn't need any execution at all. And this
Yeah.
is one of the things you can do with BALs. We had it at some point. We discussed it under the optimizations. I guess clients haven't really implemented that yet, but would be curious if there is a client team that has thought about it or might be doing so.
In Bezu, we have something, but it's not using block access list. It's using what we have in Bonsai. We have Trilog. It's something similar to block access list. We have the different modification we are doing in a block, and the idea of Fleet is to have a captain that is executing block and sending this Trilog to followers that are just applying states. So it should be something similar to what you want to do with block access list.
Right, yeah. It sounds like you could just plug in block level access list into that workflow and you're fine.
I think just in case of a reorg, for example, in Trilog, we have the value before the modification and the value after the modification. Like that, if we have a reorg, we just have to roll back the Trilog, and if we want just to import a new block, we just have to roll forward the Trilog. So as it's a bidirectional diff, we can roll back and manage the reorg. With block access, we don't have that, so I think if we apply a block access, we need to be sure that we not have a reorg. Because if we have a reorg, I think it will be a problem.
I see, yeah. I can see that. So in theory, you would also need to cache somehow the values that were on state before applying a block level access list, right?
I think yes, but regarding how we are working in Bezu, it's needed. Maybe those are clients that have a different storage format. Maybe it's not important, but for Bezu, yeah, it was important to have this value before the modification also.
Thank you. Yeah, just relaying what Jared is saying in the chat. Jared is also saying this is very much feasible and can be done. Need to be worked out as it's dangerous functionality. Yeah, it's definitely more feasible for running an RPC service than doing something like this for a testers or for validators. It will definitely cut the costs for RPC services if they don't need to engage in any execution at all. So yeah, definitely something to keep on our radar.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
It's possibly that something that might be worth adding under like a more protected RPC namespace, maybe like admin or something. But yeah, it's very straightforward to do this.
That's very encouraging to hear. Thank you.
Great. This was the last agenda item we had for today. Is there anything else that we should discuss before we wrap up?
I guess one last thing on this topic. Is there a good place where we can continue this conversation? I know Jared has already offered the idea of like potentially having an RPC method for this sort of thing. What's the best place to continue this discussion to make sure we can get follow-up?
I would propose the block level access list Discord channel for that, for now at least. As soon as we get more concrete, I would directly talk with the client teams how far they are. This is not something that is like blocking the EIP from being shipped. So if clients don't implement it until Amsterdam, nothing bad would happen. But it's definitely one of those optimizations that are very much that sound like they're very much worth it and are worth to explore. So I would, for now, propose the block level access list Discord channel, and otherwise the client's Discord channel.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, and also Barnabas had a good idea here with the RPC standard call. So there's also an RPC standardization call that would be also a great venue for those topics. I agree. Thank you. Awesome. Any more comments before we wrap up? Anything I forgot that we should definitely mention? Then to just quickly summarize, we plan to launch the Devnet 2 on the 21st of January. We will see as the date approaches how far we are with the 4 EIPs that we want to put on top of the block level access list Devnet. We will also see how far we are with the batch IO optimization. That would be very great and good to have in order to determine if we want to actually keep the state locations in the BAL or not. And Devnet 2 will then already include the JSON RPC methods and also the decoupling of the execution block from the block level access list, storing the block level access list separately. Awesome. If there is nothing else, I would say we can wrap up and end the call at this point. Perfect. Then have a good day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye.